Well, good evening, everyone, and it's finally here. It seems like forever after the last game of last year, but the 2024 edition of the Rejoice Christian Eagles football has arrived. Hello and welcome to the Rejoice Christian Eagles Coaches Show. I'm Bill Bush, joined by my wingman, Mark Kirk, and of course, head coach of the Rejoice Eagles, Brent Marley, and as always, Todd Whitten back there behind the camera and the controls. We're coming to you live. Schaefer, and right up the middle goes Noah, and he busts through and touchdown! Back to pass is Cale, looking over to his left. He got his man there, and it's Tristan Willis, and he may be gone to the races. He makes one man miss. He's down to 5. Touchdown! Rejoice Christian Eagles, as Tristan White did a lot of that on his own, making several miss. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Buffalo Wild Wings here in Owasso, home of the Rejoice Christian Eagles Coaches Show. I'm Bill Bush, joined by my wingman, Mark Kirk, and coaches Brent Marley and Brandon Johnson. And we certainly appreciate B-Dubs and Hunter and the crew for hosting the Coaches Show. And, Coach, just first things first, congratulations, 2-0 in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Continuing to march towards that gold ball. I mean, the players came out strong, I felt like, against Fairview, and once again clicking and winning on all phases of the game, defense, offense, special teams, big plays. But really, it starts, I mean, because I'm sure people hear about coaches spend a lot of times. I know that if they talk to the wives, they can tell them that.
Yeah.
But it really starts with the coaches studying film, studying the opponents, and coming up with the right schemes.
Yeah, our coaches did a tremendous job. From this guy right here with special teams in the secondary, Coach Eckel, our defensive coordinator, Coach Willis, our offensive coordinator. I felt like that coming out of the game, like just first 2 or 3 series, both sides of the ball, I mean, offensively, we were just personnel, formationing, motioning in and out. They couldn't get a beat or a rhythm on what we were doing. And that allowed us to get out of some 3rd and longs. I mean, that first touchdown was on a 3rd and 17.
Yeah, yep.
And we felt really confident in the game plan. And then defensively just set the tone. I mean, just the first couple series of 3 and out. I mean, getting them, 3 and outs on both of those, and just and both of them were plays in those first 2 series for them where they were trying to throw the ball and push it downfield, and we were all over them. I mean, and then there were a couple run plays on both those series. We stuffed them. So it was really just set the tone early, and I know that they kind of crept in a little bit at one point, but and we knew they were. I mean, they're that good of a program.
Right.
But,
yeah, championship caliber team. For
yes,
sure,
yeah.
2-time defending state champion caliber team.
Right.
So,
and I really think the start helped defend off their little push there, in the middle of the second quarter.
Yeah. Well, and as they always say, your first 5 minutes of the first half and the first 5 minutes of the second half are the most important 5 minutes in the game.
Right.
And they answered the bell on that one. And we had asked if the players were going to have any problems playing 4 full quarters after not having to do that the previous 6 games, and they answered that with a resounding no. It's not going to be a problem. Played hard the entire game, and, man, let me tell you, our fans showed up.
Did.
They were probably louder than I think I've ever heard them on any given night. I mean, what an atmosphere that was.
It was deafening. It was the roar of the crowd, the game, the temperature from the smoke when we came out of the tunnel to the roar of the crowd. The AP Productions, Active Productions, Wes does a tremendous job. Those really kind of take you back to the game and the highlights from it and show you. I mean, even watching those, the student section, and it was just a great atmosphere. And there was probably more energy on our sideline. I could feel it from the whole crowd than there's ever been in that stadium. And our players fed off of that, and they were super energized, even more than normal. And I think it was just, it's contagious.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking at a recap of the game against Fairview, in the first quarter, after forcing one of those 3 and outs that you talked about in the opening drive, The Eagles on 3rd and 17, again, as you mentioned, from their own 47, scored after ZZ took a toss from Marley and made a great cut about the 30-yard line and scored on a 57-yard pitch and catch from Cale. The PAT was good, and that was such a momentum builder because we just got to having a great big gain, and it was called back on a holding call. And to be able to go turn that and still be.
Why'd you do that, Bill?
I don't know. It's air quotes.
You might talk about that.
I've seen some.
Now we said we weren't going to do that anymore.
I just said a holding call. I didn't discount it, but
even though we probably had a better view from where we were up above, right? So I think that's right.
And several replays since then. But
Coach Johnson's a lot more calm right now than he was during the game when you were talking about that play.
Oh, I had a good look at it.
But after that call, that was what was really impressive. Like you said, we just made a big gain. Then they call a holding call, bring it back, and we go. It's 3rd and 17. We said, okay, fine, we'll just go ahead and score, which we did go up 7-0 after the PAT. And then after forcing that second straight 3-and-out and a short punt, which hit one of the Fairview players in the back of the head and bounces off to the end zone, we took over at the Fairview 42-yard line. And on 4th and 2 from the 3, Cale was able to score off around the left end off of great blocks by Caleb and even Noah Goodwin getting out there making 2 great blocks to enable Cale to score. But then Fairview, they were able to march right down the field. I mean, it was just a bam, 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 right down from their own 21 to score on a 24-yard quarterback keeper. And at that time, it looked like it's going to be a track meet.
Yeah.
I mean, because
they were building momentum up. Yeah, I think there's those first couple of series, Fairview really looked shell-shocked. I mean, between what we were doing on offense and then just basically stopping them totally on defense, they really kind of a little bit of shell shock to them. And they like I said, they're a well-coached team. They're a very disciplined team, and they worked their way back out of it. They were trying to build that momentum back up. You can kind of feel it coming on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so that was the end of the first quarter is 14-7 Eagles, and then on 3rd and 3, this is in the second quarter. On 3rd and 3, the Yellow Jackets, they were back in business again after recovering a Rejoice fumble, and on first down from their own 43. They were going for a chunk play after that fumble, and Luke Schaefer got the ball right back for the Eagles after intercepting the ball at the Eagles' 16-yard line. Defensive backs, I mean, you taught him everything he needed to know, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is first year playing corner.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best I've ever had.
He's doing a great job. And however, the Eagles, we were able to intercept the ball at 16. However, we had to punt the ball from our own end zone after going 3-and-out. We went backwards, unfortunately, on that drive. And Fairview took over at the Eagle 30-yard line. At that time, we're thinking, okay, we're in a dogfight. And it looked like the Yellow Jackets were going to score when their quarterback, Bernard was headed to the end zone until a great open field tackle by Cale brought the quarterback down to 12. And, Coach, I know you've seen this movie before as far as the quarterback going down. Their quarterback, Bernard, who also happens to be the coach's son, went down with a knee injury, and he's really what makes that offense go. And I know that just really – it probably ripped out Cale's hearts and somewhat because he knows exactly what this guy's feeling about. And I know Cale felt bad about it, but it was a great hit. I mean, there was nothing malicious or anything. It was just a great hit downfield.
Yeah, it kind of shook him a little bit because he heard his knee pop. I mean, Cale heard Bernard's knee, and then he knew by looking at it. Just like you said, it's all brings back everything.
They call that PTSD, by the way.
Yeah, PTSD. I think I had a little bit too. I went out there and anyway, but I've talked to Coach Bernard since then, and I just assured him that Cale was not doing anything malicious. It was that's just the way he's always tackled, is low like that, and and he understood. He was gracious, and we talked after the game. He talked to Cale. Cale got to talk to Jax for a while, and they've texted a couple times since the whole thing. It kind of opened a door for Cale to minister to him a little bit, and it's just an unfortunate deal. But what a heck of a career that kid has had. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. That kid's done what 99% of kids don't get to do in high school football in his career.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. not
he
just
was
one,
really
but
good
twice.
on both sides of the ball. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
he was
Good
dominant
player,
on both
yeah.
sides.
Yeah. Well, now with their backup quarterback in the game on third down, Hope Wilson was able to get his, I believe it's his 6th interception of the year, tying Big Brother's
It
freshman
did.
record.
Take that chance.
Yeah, so that's right. Take that chance. But again, tying it for a touchback, and after several big runs by Kale, a 35-yard reception by ZZ, and then after a penalty, set it up and then a penalty, another one of those penalties. We've got it 2nd and 20 from the 39, and Noah took the rock and, like in Noah-like fashion, breaking tackles, scored on a 39-yard run, and the PATs were good. Was good. So now we're up 21-7. The Eagles forced another 3 and out, and on first down from their own 42, it was Marley to Nichols for a 42-yard bomb on a great catch. Actually, that's what went up 21-7 was on that great catch going down the sideline. I mean, just had a 1st and 10 at the 15, but were unable to score as Fairview intercepted the ball in the end zone. So when we were up 21-7, we're kind of go through that last play of the first half because, I mean, we had no timeouts left because we had to use them early. Time's running down. I'm thinking, okay, are we going to kick an extra point? I mean, a field goal? Are we going for it? And really, it was just a rush play and, just trying to get guys lined up and calls made.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I felt like we felt like if we'd have scored one more time and made it 28-7, we'd have put them away. And, and then hindsight looking back on it, of course we didn't have a timeout, but could we have clocked it and kicked a field goal?
Well, it was 4th down.
Yeah, and no, that's true. On the last play, it was 4th down. So, I mean,
there was a little bit. There's a little bit of wind. Wasn't much, but there was a little.
Yeah, I mean, it was, that was the whole thing. It's just a tough. If I could go back, I probably would have just tried to get a field goal in and kick a field goal because 24-7 would have been good. But it did. The wind was coming out of the south, and you're looking at the flag, it was headed the other way. And so, I mean, in our stadium, the wind is that is why all season, every single game, I meet with the captains for the game, and I tell them if the wind is blowing, now that was the least wind game we had starting off.
It was relatively calm, yeah.
Relatively calm, yeah. But
and going against the Gibbs Center.
Going against the Gibbs,
so.
yeah. But we deferred. But in that situation, I probably would have kicked the field goal doing it again. Give ourselves a chance to go up 24-7 would have been a nice cushion as well.
Well, so, Coach Johnson, I mean, thinking that you might not see their quarterback in the second half, how did that, when you going in talking to the guys, your defensive backs and everything, how does that change the defense as far as now what are you planning on doing? Because things are going to change now, you're thinking anyway, that, hey, we're going to face their backup quarterback. How does that change your defensive back schemes and the defense overall?
Right. No, we didn't think even of changing anything. I had no idea who they were going to bring in. We saw that one kid, but they're still going to throw it, and we're still going to be playing man-to-man. That's what we do best, and stop the run. But we heard at halftime that he was coming back. So,
which was surprised. That shocked me.
Kid's a warrior.
Yeah, just guts. I mean,
brace it up and play.
Yeah. Well, the Eagles did. They second half, they got on the opening drive was stopped by a fumble at the Fairview 36. And surprisingly, as we just talked about, their quarterback, Jax Bernard, after sustaining an ACL injury, came back out to quarterback the Yellow Jackets with a brace on his left knee, basically playing on one leg.
He can still sling it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that we were able to force a turnover on downs on their own 45 after a long run by Fairview, and that was one of their that got called back. I mean, that was a long run all the way down to the 5, and they called motion. Now, I've gone back and looked at the film over and over. What was the motion? What was the procedure call on?
They said that I believe their number 4 on our sideline wasn't set for a count. I thought, kind of looking back at the film, he was. Did you? Someone said he was looking for the play, or But,
I mean, he was swiveling his head, but I mean, his feet never moved, his body never moved. He was just looking at the sidelines for the call. I was surprised that it came back. I wasn't sad that it came back.
No.
But I was surprised that was called back, and that was huge.
It was huge.
I mean, they could go, take it to 21-14
Yeah.
if they
He
can
was-
punch it in.
He didn't know the play call because he was running back from running that deep route.
Right.
So he was waving his hands because he didn't know the play, so he never did get set. So we could,
So that's
I'll
yeah.
be able to throw the flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So anyway, that we were able to force that turnover and downs after that call, and then the Eagles marched all the way down the field, and on 1st and goal from the 8, Camion broke several tackles and made a nice run for the touchdown. And Mark and I talk about it all the time, and that was with 1:35 left in the third quarter. And Mark and I talk about it all the time. He just doesn't even look like he's.
No effort.
Right.
I mean, he's zipping down the field, but it just looks like he's just
Easy
got
speed.
it in second gear and not in high gear.
Yeah.
It's
No, it's fun to watch.
It is.
Yeah.
but he just makes one little cut, and the guy's whoop. I mean, and then you say, okay, see ya.
Yeah. And that was a good run because on that touchdown run, it was kind of a stretch play, and he cut it back up inside, and he just put his head down and got some hard yards in between the tackles to get in the end zone. Great run.
Runs
and
tough.
that's where the gap kind of started. You start feeling like, okay, you know what? Not that you can coast, but
Yeah.
you're feeling pretty good about where you're at right now.
Well, it's 28-7 at that time, going into the fourth quarter. And after another turnover on downs, the Eagles took over at the Fairview 34, where on 1st down, the Eagles scored on a 34-yard pitch and catch, Marley to Nichols for a touchdown. And it was really a great run after the catch to score. And again, we talk, they go up 34-7, missed the PAT. But we were just really impressed with Bernard's ability to accomplish on one leg what he was able to do, because, obviously he's not going to run, and
That's the only thing he couldn't do.
yeah, but he was still slinging the ball and accurately several times, and of course they had that big tailback they could hand off to him, and so. Again, would we win the game? Yes, I think we still win the game. Would it have been closer? Absolutely, because all of a sudden you've got a weapon that you've got to help defend, and he's also not out there as far as a defensive back, and he's a really good.
I think
defensive
that made
back.
a significant impact as well. Him and on the defensive side.
Yeah, they hadn't played him on defense all year, but we figured he was going to play against us, being a senior and elimination game and all that. So.
And trying to match speed for speed.
Right.
That's what I thought they were trying to do.
Right.
Well, and I know the coaches, because I know the fans we were, as far as frustrating on some of the penalties, whether they were questionable or not. But, you've got to be pleased with the way that the players performed, not getting – even when we were behind the chains, they still – and after having big chunk plays called back, there were several times that they responded with big plays of their own instead of getting down on themselves or on the officials.
Yeah.
Still going out and performing at a high level.
It's one of those things we talk about. We feel like that we're, maybe on the wrong end of some of that sometimes, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So what, now what? So we have to be able to bounce back. And it really, I think, talking about it, being part of our culture, you know what? We're never going to lose a game because of the officials.
Right.
And, just not going to accept that. Because if you do, you've got excuses ready to go. And so we've got to overcome that. And I really feel like, I think it was 11 penalties for 90-something yards on us, and then they had, 4 for 20.
Yeah.
8 holdings to none.
If they're going to, I don't mind if a crew's going to call holding. At least they are, but both sides are going to hold pretty much the same amount. They're taught the same way how to stay within the frame, lock your thumbs under. That's just taught.
Yeah.
And so that both sides are going to do it, and for it to be that lopsided, 8-0 on holding is just, I don't know, it gets a little frustrating sometimes.
It does.
Well, looking at some of the passing or the leaders on offense, Cale was 13 for 17 with 1 interception, 2 touchdowns for 244 yards through the air. Rushing, Noah Goodwin, 17 rushes for 127 yards and a touchdown. Camion Compton Nero, 8 rushes for 77 yards and a touchdown. And then Cale had 16 rushes for 57 yards and a touchdown. ZZ in the receiving, ZZ Okufuluezi, 5 catches for 131 yards and a TD. And then Ben Nichols, 3 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. And, Coach, you had several guys make big plays. We had big plays all night long. ZZ and Ben with some big catches. I mean, and even some that maybe don't look like a big play at the time. Blake Witten caught a pass down on the north end zone and just fought for every yard. It ended up being like I think about a 12-yard, 13-yard catch, 14-yard.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just –
almost broke it to get in, and
but yards after contact, though.
Yeah. There was. I mean, again, it seems like that's kind of been our MO. Every game, there's one or two receivers that maybe have the bigger game, and then there's 2 or 3 supporting cast that make big plays here and there, and are big time contributors to help us, do what we do in the air.
Yeah, well, because that helped to keep the drive alive. I mean, again, it doesn't show up on the big plays of the game, but it does if you're watching closely.
Plus, I know we've said this many, many times, it stops them from keying on anybody.
Right.
Who are you going to key on?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, Noah and Camion, doing it on the ground, and then Kale through the air, responsible for 3 touchdowns. Once again, able to spread it around to your playmakers, which is what you like to do.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's a blessing for us. It's easier to call plays when you don't really have to think, okay, we got to get this one guy the ball. This guy's got to touch it 25 times. Really just spread it around, and the chances are whoever's touching it has some ability.
Yeah, no doubt. It's worked pretty well so far this season.
Right.
And back on the defensive side of the ball was another one of those fantastic nights. It seems like once again we just talk about spread the wealth around. We've just got everybody involved. From the all 11 guys out on the field are getting involved in the plays. You're not really seeing just one person coming in dominating on the number of tackles. It's just constantly, and they're gang tackling. They're doing a great job as far as that goes. And then we saw some excellent open field tackling too, which is always really outstanding because you watch those solo tackles out in the middle of the field. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it is tough, especially in the open field. But we had, 25 ran the ball a little better. I thought he would. I mean, he's a sophomore, I think it was, but he ran the ball really hard.
He ran hard, for sure. It was not an easy tackle. And it's just like when Kale tackled Bernard. He was not small. Bernard's not a small kid.
No, he's not.
No. He did a good job, squaring it up and getting him down. Yes, he had to tackle low, but he basically had to at that point. Physics still take over.
Yeah.
But it was a great night again, and we love counting all this because it's really hard to keep up with. But it does make it for fun for sure. But on defensive leaders for the night, we had Cade Schaefer, 12. Once again, Cade Schaefer, 12 tackles, 6 solo, 1 for a loss. Again, lots of these tackles for losses, which is the other thing I just love seeing. Carson Losey, 7 tackles, 3 solo, 1 for a loss. Noah Schnackenberg, 6 tackles, 5 solo. Wade White, 3 tackles, 2 solo, and 1 for a loss. Luke Schaefer, 4 solo tackles and an interception, big-time interception. Camion, 7 tackles, 5 solo, and a really good pass breakup, too, that looked like it was going to be a good long completion, and he broke that one out. Wade Wilson, 4 tackles, 2 solo, and 1 interception. Again, fantastic job by the defense. Did anybody kind of stand out? What was your thoughts on the night?
Yeah, I was pretty happy back there. Their quarterback is, what was he, the 3rd all-time leading passer in the state, 10,000 yards. So we took it as a challenge on the back end. This is the biggest challenge of the year. We've come so far from we were at Cassia Hall. We're young, and then to Pecola. That was a little wasn't us. But we get better and better and better. He threw the ball 28 times. He completed 9. I'm not a math guy, but somewhere around 35%.
Odds are in your favor, right?
For 73 yards. Now, I know he couldn't run, and that eliminates a lot of their playbook with him running the ball. But he can still sling it. He's got a strong arm. When you play man-to-man, you're going to give up some big plays. But our thing is make those windows smaller. Make them smaller. Make them hard to fit in and play the ball well. And I couldn't be more proud of the guys on the backside.
I thought they did a fun fantastic job for sure. They gave up a couple of big drives, but it was that kind of, again, they were a quality team. I mean, this is a good offense team, right? You're going to see some of that, but only 1 TD. At the end of the night, still only 1 TD. The interceptions, again, those turnovers. I thought that was another big time advantage to for Rejoice.
That play that Luke made on that ball. I mean, Luke is fast. Luke is one of the fastest kids in the state. His recovery on that he caught back up to a guy, and then
because he wasn't in the best position to
yeah,
begin with.
just sails out, goes up for it. I didn't know if it was him or Holt that made the play. He came up with it. Holt came back and got his pick later on. But,
Yeah.
But they're just they attack the ball.
Yeah.
That's what we
Especially
want.
against a high-powered offense like that. Like you were saying, you got a quarterback that is one of the best in the state, and to be able to shut him down for that amount, even on two good legs, I don't know. I mean, they would have gotten more, but how much more?
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit. But I mean, it certainly made an impact. He came back in the game, played the second half, but he was still, like you said, he was still, something to be reckoned with for sure.
We would have made some adjustments maybe if we had to on the run game, but what we were doing in the passing game was working. So
you really didn't change anything up in the second half as far as pass coverage or
No.
anything.
No, we were very simple.
we are who we are.
Yes.
When you got the cats to play it, do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, they certainly worked out again that night. So I guess the other thing we didn't do our players of the game on Friday night.
The broadcast players
in the
of the
heat
game.
of the moment, right?
Yeah.
we put it off again. So we're going to go ahead and get that going tonight. So on defense, we had several guys again that were very much worthy of player of the game. You go back, you look at the stats. They're certainly in the middle of it. Excellent jobs by a lot of them. Defensive player of the games, let's see, we had like Wade Wilson, 4 tackles and an interception, Cade Schaefer, Schnackenberg, Camion, Carson Lotze, all these guys. It's the same crew every weekend. It seems like we're going through the same thing again. All these guys listed out, and the tackles for loss again. It's just fantastic stuff. But we had one guy that really kind of set himself apart. Did several things that really had a huge impact on the game, including the solo tackles and then that big interception that was Luke Schaefer.
Yeah. Well, and that on the very opening play, that tackle that he goes right down on the kickoff and just by himself.
Yeah, on special teams.
On special teams.
Yeah.
You kind of like that special team stuff, don't you?
Give me some track guys on kickoff. Get speed. Yeah, he's been great. All those guys on kickoff coverage have been great.
And Luke's gotten better and better at corner all year. Like, first part of the year, he wasn't even starting.
Right.
And he's just improved each week. And like Brandon said, his speed and competitiveness. He's gotten better at finding the ball. He's gotten better at playing the ball. It just takes experience, and he's a good athlete. So.
And there must be something in the Schaefer blood because those guys go full out every play.
Yeah.
Well, I know their dad really
It's
well,
all Billy.
and I think there's a woodshed out back if they don't play well.
Oh yeah.
I thought you were going to say that all that talent comes from the mom's side.
It probably does. It probably comes from Julie. Yeah, sorry, Billy.
That's what Billy would say if he's smart.
Yeah.
With a big player of the game, I mean, again, there were, just like on defense, there were a couple of guys, ZZ had some big plays. Ben Nichols, Noah. But this guy had a couple of big plays, and he had 2 big plays on offense. I mean, he did some on defense, but none bigger than that 57-yard score after making that slick move in the open field. Because, I mean, he's going down, and this guy thinks he's got an angle on Z. He makes one little move, and then there's nobody in front of him. It's just all downhill after that. Just popping it right into the end zone, taking it to the house, and that's ZZ Okufuloezi for a big player of the game. Again, it's nice to have these problems on. All right, who are we going to give a big play to? I mean, Noah had a big run, You had, you just had several guys. Ben had a big play. I mean, there were probably more big plays in that game than I remember us having in a while on offense.
I think there was 11 on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
And that's over 11. I think those are over 20 or 30 yards. 20 or 30 is what Mike tallies them for.
Yeah, and so there's a bunch. And on the offensive side of things, as far as the player of the game, the broadcast player of the game, it was really nice to see this guy getting back into the rushing game with his 57 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 244 yards through the air and 2 TDs, 301 total yards and 3 TDs total. And that's, of course, Cale Marley, probably one of his best overall games this year, I think. I mean, as far as rushing, reading, because, again, when you don't have to do it all. I mean, how many times last year we had to say, all right, Cale's going to have to run it or he's going to have to throw it. And now he's got all these guys around him to where he doesn't have to get beat up and run it all the time, but yet he's still able to get 57 yards and made some nice runs.
Yeah, and he, unfortunately, he had probably 50 yards called back in holding calls.
Yeah.
It seemed like some of his better runs were holding penalties, but anyway. And then at quarterback too, he takes a couple sacks, and I put him back in to take the knee. Well, every time you take a knee and you lose 5 yards,
yeah.
it's
Dad, let somebody else go take a knee.
Right, but anyway, but no, he was feeling much more like himself last week and going into that game.
Yeah.
Plus, we had, I think he probably had it in him a game or two before, but we were kind of had the training wheels on, and I told him at home during the week. I try not to talk about it too much at home. But all bets are off now. Like, this is go time.
Yeah.
So,
there's
There's no
other
holding
topic.
back.
There's no other topic of discussion.
That's
no,
right.
No.
Well, this is why you put in all the work in the off season, and then during the season, that's to be one of 4 teams left standing. And you're right where you had hoped to be at this time of the year. Obviously, this is where you hope to be in the semifinals with a chance to go to the championship game with a win Friday night. And you're doing it against a team it's a familiar foe. It's somebody that we played earlier in the year in Christian Heritage Academy. They're the district A2 champs. All 4 teams in this, by the way, are champs, which is a pretty cool deal that, they're district champs. And they seem to be playing really good right now. How dangerous is it for us to go into this game thinking it's going to be easy after beating them 52-21 third game of the season? I mean, we've been in this position before. We beat Beggs like a drum during the regular season, and they came out and said, we don't want you guys to go any further in the playoffs, and whipped us in the playoffs. Yeah. I think we thought, well, good, it's Beggs. We know we can beat them, and that didn't happen. So how hard is it, to get your guys up? I mean, when we played them the first time, it was without Cale, so you didn't have Cale in there. Camion had a great game that night, 257 yards passing and 4 touchdowns, along with Noah, who had a monster game on the ground, 175 yards and 2 TDs. But the score might be a little deceiving because, it was 28-21 going in with less than 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. 28-21, and they just kind of imploded. We scored on 2 turnovers. In less than 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, we scored 21 points. So what do you tell your guys? I don't think that they need a whole lot of motivation, but you've been here before.
Yeah, our seniors were sophomores when we lost to Beggs and beat them 550 in the third week of the season and lost to them first round. Our juniors were freshmen. We've got over half our football team was part of that group and remembers that. So they're a lot better football team than they were when we played them. And people, well, I don't know. And they did lose their quarterback a week or two after we played them, who was a really good defensive player, great athlete on offense, number 4. But they're better right now because this is why. They're in the semifinals, and they've won 8 straight. I don't
Confidence
care.
Is out the roof.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, and there's too many. You don't meet somebody in the semifinals and they're not legit.
Right, and you don't meet somebody that beat Pawhuska last week because Pawhuska had a really good team.
Right.
And they did it by coming back and beating Pawhuska.
And Pawhuska's had their way with almost everybody besides Pawnee. They've been able to just do what they want, score however many points they want, pretty much. So we better be ready. And we played these guys in 2018 in the semifinals, and I don't know if you remember that year, but they were 3-5 going into week 9, and we were 8-0, and they won, and then they won again week 9 and 10. They made it to the playoffs at a 4 seed at 5-5, and then they win 3 straight in the playoffs and meet us in the semis at 8-5, and we're 13-0, and we're ranked like number 2 in the state, and they're 8-5, and they'd won 5 straight. And we had a weird week. Our great running back got in a serious car wreck on a Wednesday. We had a 2.5-hour lightning delay at Cushing, and the wheels fell off, and they beat us and go state championship. So it's not the best team that always win. And I'm not saying we're better than Christian Heritage. I'm saying we were better than Christian Heritage week 3. Now this Friday night we have to go play a game and decide who's better this Friday night.
Right. Yeah, everything's happened before really is kind of out the window. But are they the same team physically as what they were when we played in week 3?
Brandon, I think they're more physical running the ball.
Yeah, they want to pound it. They got a couple big backs.
Oh,
That's their identity.
Their number 14
Yeah.
is huge, and he's
Quarterback can run too.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about that, about number 10 and number 4, because I noticed it was 2 different quarterbacks. But this guy's good.
He's good.
This quarterback is good, and he can throw it, and
Yep.
he can run.
Yep.
And it's going to be either him or 14 running the ball.
Yep.
And then he can throw it downfield, and he throws it. He can throw it a long ways
Right,
downfield.
he's got some weapons too. Number 11, number 2, number 23. I mean, they've got some kids that can catch the ball.
12 was one of their better athletes at receiver when we played him the first time. Now he's a
quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's their height on their receivers? I mean,
11's pretty tall.
I'm
11's
trying
tall.
to remember back now.
Yeah.
It seemed like they had.
2's not as tall, but he's a really good athlete. He's the guy in the slot that they try to get the ball to, and he can run, he can make moves, and he's a guy to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
So.
And so what about their defense? I mean, we're a different team also than what we played when we played Denmark 3.
I was going to say that,
We've
too.
got quite a few more weapons that are in the holster that weren't there last week.
And we got a lot more experience. The guys that are out there that were gaining experience at the first part of the season, they've got a lot more experience now.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've seen the 20 personnel on film, but they haven't faced it. That's the three-headed monster is a big difference in the backfield, and we were able to do a lot of damage on the ground in that first game, and then Camion through the air.
Yeah.
They run that 3-man front. They got a big nose guard, and they got some pretty good defensive ends, but it just seems like that 3-man. Now maybe it's if you have like we do, you have the fast linebackers that can fill the gaps, but it just seems like they're just inviting you to try to run between the tackles.
Yeah, I mean they do, but the thing about it is, and I think that's how when you find teams in the semis, they haven't switched up. They're going to be in their 3-3. They're going to run cover 3 and run some man, and they're going to just stay simple and let their kids play fast and free. It's the teams that you see that adjust a lot and make all these changes and do all this stuff that seem to be like in high school football. Sometimes just get too, and we've talked about it before. We've been there and done that, and it's what we're trying to do this year defensively at all costs is just 2-3 calls a game, 2 or 3 looks, and offensively not put too much in. It's almost like eliminate, maybe add 2 plays a week, 2 wrinkles, and so. But yeah, it's going to be. We better be ready for a 5-quarter fight, knockdown, drag out, street fight, because it's not going to be easy. And the school's never gotten past this round. And the school's been to this round 4 times, 2012, 13, 18, and 19. And so and this is the game. Like that's what we've been preaching all week. This is the game. Forget any. There is no other game. Yep. If you don't win this is a regional championship. It has a history in itself. This is what it's all about. Don't listen to rat poison around you or none of that stuff. We have not beat Christian Heritage twice yet, and so we have to do that.
So that's kind of your final thoughts,
Yeah.
Brandon. What's your final thoughts?
The same thing. It's we got to go take it from them again. They're going to come out. They're probably thinking they blew a lot of opportunities the last time they played us. They turned it over 4 times. They had it to a 1-score game. So I'm sure they've got all the confidence in the world, and we got to go prove it again.
Yeah, 100%. Mark?
Tackle.
That's going to be another
Tackle. There you go.
Tackle. Yeah.
Which we do pretty well.
Play fundamentals, right? Take care of your fundamentals exactly, and then take care of the ball. I mean that's the one thing that there was. If you look at last week, there were turnovers on both sides. Take care of the ball. I think in a game like what we're going to be facing this week,
turnovers could be the key.
Could be the key, exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Well, fans, you guys hit a high watermark last week by showing up, showing out. You were so loud. A really raucous crowd. And so let's travel down to Beggs this Friday night and do the same thing. I mean, we're the designated home team for the game. That means there's going to be lots of room on that home stands, and we need to fill every seat down there and make it feel like a home game in Beggs. Make it feel that way against Christian Heritage. I mean, you don't know how much that advantage can really make for these players. It's a huge advantage if you can come out and show. I've already, Little Bird told me that it's going to be loud. There's going to be some noise. It may be artificial, I don't know, but it's going to be loud. So if you're unable to make that short drive down Highway 75, you can certainly join Mark and I on this same YouTube channel. But for tonight, that's going to do it for the Coaches Show. We really would like to see you guys come down there so that we can have just a really big crowd and a really great atmosphere again. For my wingman Mark Kirk, for coaches Brent Marley and Brandon Johnson, and, of course, our engineer, Todd Witten. I'm Bill Bush, and you've been watching the Rejoice Christian Eagles Coaches Show on this Rejoice Athletics TV channel. Good night, God bless, and go Eagles.